Hello everyone, back at it again in my little yellow kayak. I just launched the kayak, I'm getting myself situated, and we're going to do something a little different today. We're going to fish for bluegill, and I just spooked 3 or 4 right off the starboard bow towards the front of my kayak there. And so they're in these emerging dollar pads. That's what those little red pads are that are coming up. The lily pads still haven't really popped yet. It's been a cool spring for the most part. And I'm going to start out with a float. I think I stayed with a float for most of the time. That's a Thill Mini Shy Bite float. I don't think they make it anymore. But you could use a little foam float. This one happens to be balsa. And the lure I'm fishing is a 1/32 ounce tungsten jig head with a black and green trout magnet on it. I'll list all the gear in the video description, just like all the other videos. And pretty much as soon as I launched, I was into fish. And it was mostly bluegill. I think I caught a couple pumpkin seeds, but mostly bluegill. They weren't spawning yet. I didn't see any bluegill on beds, although in some other ponds they definitely are. This pond happens to be pretty deep and clear. They stock it with trout, and it takes a while to warm up compared to some shallow mud holes that are in the area. Nothing against shallow mud holes. Some of those are pretty good fishing. Oh, you see that? I was using my Swiss Army knife to pop out the hook. It's got a fish hook disgorger on it, and it's really helpful for fish with little tiny mouths like bluegill. If they suck that bait down in there, you can't easily get a pair of forceps, certainly not needle nose pliers. They're just too big for their small mouths. But with that fish hook disgorger, all you do is you put a little tension on the rod, slide it down to the bend in the hook. You pop the hook out, and then use the fish hook disgorger on the Swiss Army knife to guide the hook point out of the fish's mouth. With tension on the rod, it just naturally wants to come out. And that's all there is to it. I'm going to do it again right here. Put a little tension on the rod. Try not to hit the camera or hit your head with the rod. I'll get there eventually. And then you just pop it out. That's all there is to it. Kind of reverse overhand grip there. But I got it done. So yeah, the Swiss Army knife that I use all the time, it's the fisherman model. It's not the angler model. The angler model has a pair of pliers, which are pretty much useless. So don't get that one. Get the fisherman version. I think they're about $30 online. And has a great knife, great little pair of scissors. I use the scissors all the time. And that fish hook disgorger I use all the time pan fishing. You almost don't need forceps or pliers when you're fishing for panfish. You could just bring that little Swiss Army knife, and it takes up no space at all. And I've had mine for, I don't know, probably 10 years now. Putting a little Procure scent on the trout magnet. I probably don't really need to do that. The fish are very aggressive. And as soon as I dangle it over the side, I'm not even casting anymore. There's fish on there. So this kind of fishing is perfect for taking a kid fishing, or somebody that's never been fishing before. It's pretty much instant action. And wherever you're fishing, around the world, you can kind of use the weeds as an indicator. Once they start coming up, those sunfish should be shallow and fairly easy to target. Or what else? If you had a girlfriend or a wife and they haven't gone out fishing with you much, this is a great way to get them out in the water. Plenty of action. It's not going to be boring. You know, I see sometimes people take their kids out. Maybe it's bass fishing, and it's a tough bite, and the kids aren't catching anything, and they get antsy. You run out of snacks pretty quickly, and that's just a tough sell. So if you were thinking about taking a kid fishing, this is kind of ideal. Or, you know, anybody that doesn't fish a lot or just wants to get into it, or maybe you're in a slump and you're just not catching any fish. Now, in my case, the bass around me are spawning, and I'm trying to avoid the bass spawn anyway, and just let them do their thing. And so that's why I'm out here bluegill fishing. I got that one wrapped up on a lily pad stem, or a dollar pad stem, I guess. Fishing with a 6-pound leader, so it's not super light. These fish didn't seem to be line sensitive at all. And these little dollar pad stems, they're not a big deal to, you know, if you wrap around them. Usually the fish pop out. Yeah, so the system is 7-foot Daiwa Presso rod. I've got the 2-piece. The 4-piece travel rod's also great. You can keep it in the back of your truck. For a reel, I'm using a size 1000 Daiwa reel. I think it's the old Legalis I'm fishing with right here, but the Fuego's great. Anything from the Legalis on up is great for this purpose. You don't need a high-end reel at all for this. There's another one. I'm fishing with 6-pound Berkley X9 braid, and it comes in 6-pound test in the flame green color. So if you don't see it right away in like low vis green, or I don't know, one of the other colors, check the flame green color. Usually they have it in stock in that size, in that color. And then a 6-pound leader, like I said. You can use, I like Maxima Ultra Green, but it's not too important. You could use pretty much any brand of mono that you like. You don't need fluoro at all for this application. They're not line sensitive. And this is pretty clear water. I can see the bottom in 10 feet of water easily. And that's it. You know, 7-foot ultralight rod, little reel, light line. That Thill mini shy bite float weighs almost nothing, so you need a casting setup that can cast light stuff pretty well, and this definitely works for me. There he is. Another little bluegill. There are some big ones in here, but I couldn't find the really big ones on this trip. I did get a bigger pumpkin seed. There's also some redbreast sunfish in here, and those get bigger than the bluegill. Some of those get dinner plate sized. And they're hard to find though. At least here. I got to go through about 100 bluegill to get one redbreast. Got nice colors on them. Looking good. These fish were pretty active, and if I'd known how active they would have been, or they were, I would have brought a little popper out with me. The Rapella ultralight pop, or ultralight popper. It's got little tiny hooks. I don't really like it for bass because the hooks are so small, but it works great for panfish. And I think they would have gone for it. And the reason I say that, and this is another thing to pay attention to, is because some of the bluegill were going after the float. You know, they go after the float and not the jig. And when that happens, you know they're going to eat topwater. Got myself tangled up a little bit. I'll sort that out in a minute. There we go. Back in action. I could have stayed in the same spot and just caught every fish that I could that was in that same area. I'm trying to move out into a little bit deeper water. I was trying to look for some better fish. Not that those fish are, tiny or anything. They're, I would say, just average size. I was just exploring a little bit, seeing if I could get into some better quality fish. But they seemed about all the same, other than that one bigger pumpkin seed I got. See, that one went after the float. Found the hook though. Off he goes. After that last fish, I had to fix the trout magnet on my jig head. The jig head's got a little tiny barb. It doesn't hold the plastic really well, so I put a little micro drop of super glue on that shank of the jig head to hold it in place. But after you go through, I don't know, about a dozen sunfish, you have to reseat that plastic on the jig head. And as long as I'm going to do that, I'm going to put a little super glue on there to really hold it in place, and that makes a big difference. The other thing that bluegill are kind of particular about is that the jig hangs horizontally in the water. So if you catch a fish or you miss a fish, you just have to reposition that knot so it's kind of back on the jig. And if you hang the bait over the side of the boat, you want it to sit horizontally in the water and not at a 45-degree angle or vertically. So after every fish, you want to reposition that jig head and push the knot back on the eyelet. If people are doing this technique and you're not catching a lot of bluegill, that can be a big factor. It should be, if you're in an area with a lot of bluegill, like this area here, it should be, pretty much every cast or every other cast. And I find the people that are having trouble or not catching, a lot of times it's a simple thing like that. It's not pushing that knot back on the jig head. The float's a little hard to see because it's small. So if there's any wind or waves or boat wakes, this can be a little bit challenging. But it's pretty calm in this little cove here, and that's part of the reason I'm fishing it. We've got a storm coming in, and the fish, I think, are a little bit fired up ahead of that storm too. So I got a little window to fish here, and things are just kind of lining up nicely for me. I'm shaking that float on the water. And it's not so much to shake the float, it's to shake the jig head down below that's attached to the float. There he is. Handsome little bluegill. I can see a couple in the water next to the boat. That didn't take long. Polarized glasses really help with this kind of fishing. You can see everything. There he is. Another bluegill. They're almost carbon copies of each other. Shaking that jig. I'm really just trying to get their attention. There's another one, and that's a different species. That's a pumpkin seed. There he is. That's a nice one. Off she goes. Oh, jeez. I got another one. Before I was even ready to cast again, another fish grabbed it as it was on its way down. That's how you know they're kind of fired up. You know, you could do this kind of fishing with some other plastics, but I feel like the trout magnet's working pretty well. You know, one of my favorites is shad fries for crappie, but bluegill tend to rip the tail off, and you know they might not be as willing to run a bait down as a crappie are. Bluegill sometimes come up and inspect the bait, look at it, and then they decide to eat it. And because the trout magnet doesn't have a lot of appendages like a paddle tail with a thin section towards the tail, they don't seem to be as likely to rip off those legs. It's a very streamlined bait. It reminds me a little bit of a downsized flipping bait because it's very streamlined. So you could think of it, you know, if it was, I don't know, 10 times the size, it would slide in and out of cover really well. And I feel like it slides in and out of the fish's mouths pretty well too, and it doesn't get torn up as much as I would have thought it would. It doesn't have a lot of action. It's kind of a do-nothing thing down there in the water. I think the scent helps a lot. But I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. Just like all my other videos, I'll list all the gear in the video description so you can duplicate what I was doing out here today. And again, this is a great fishery to take a kid or somebody just hasn't been fishing a lot out to see what it's all about. Catch a whole pile of fish. If you're going to keep a bunch, try to keep the smaller ones, let the big ones go so you can catch a few big ones next time. I'll catch you on the next one. See ya!